tell me what's happening before I go see a lawyer and leave my 2 young girls without daddy at home.
The following program contains scenes of...
What's wrong with it, bitch boy? Are you horny?
Viewer discretion is advised.
The best way I can describe it is she's an alpha woman, and I've always been an alpha male even before I knew what the term meant. I'd plate 2 to 3 women at a time before I even knew what a plate was. The first time I went out, my wife had sex with a different plate that morning. Being super alpha is what attracted me to her, and her rockin' body and willingness to do whatever I wanted, while the dating is what attracted me to her. I would say that I was most beta after the birth of my 2 girls, which I don't make excuses for, as she legitimately needed help during those times. I lift heavy 4 days a week, I'm 6 foot tall, 180 pounds, I bench press 250, 8% body fat year round. 6-pack, big arms, ripped chest, wide shoulders, 32-inch waist, confident. I dress well, and I know for a fact that I could sleep with any girl if I wanted. She is apparently oblivious to this. But we butt heads a lot. Our communication is crap. She doesn't express emotion like other women I know. She's nothing like the wives I read about. She's a brick wall. She doesn't give a damn about anything. Apparently, not that I ever tried to talk to her about my day, but she straight out told me this when I did once tell her about a major financial initiative I was working on that could benefit us. Yeah, I don't care how your day went unless you have something interesting to tell me, save it. She never seeks emotional validation. Grandmother dies, blank stare and silence, and then, you know this means we need to go to the PA for the funeral, right? She never expresses any needs to me, physical, emotional, nothing. Only wants. I want a new house. This one makes noises. Otherwise, just blankness. During certain parts of her cycle leading up to Shark Week, she refuses to be my first officer. Wants me to be the captain. When I don't let her, she withdraws completely. During Aunt Flo, she refuses to do anything physical no matter how much dread game I throw at her. No shower sex, no BJs. I use dread and escalate when needed. You need to cook dinner while I do laundry. Nope. Going to happy hour with the boys. See you later. And she's in bed snoring at 9 p.m. when I come home. She won't clean anything outside of vacuuming once every couple weeks, using the clingy 1-year-old as an excuse for not doing anything. She left a bobby pin thing in the shower for a year. I took a picture of the rust forming and sent it to her daily for a week. I know you see this every day. Clean the shower. No, I don't care about how dirty the shower is. It's filthy. Then I guess I'm a filthy person, but I'm not cleaning the shower. If it bothers you so much, you clean it. I'm not cleaning the thing on principle alone. Is this sociopathic behavior? What's going on here? I know my game is strong. I mean, when we have sex, I want her hands off, like she removes my hands from her body. What works is for us to be, marriage struggled. That's when I call it when she's in bed and I come upstairs and start playing with her. Anyways, I dread her. I slap her ass, I send graphic texts, yada yada yada. I have an intense job as a financial analyst and planner. I'm completely drained every day. Between working on my career and working on my wife, I feel like I'm just at the end of my rope. This morning, I ignored her tests, like literally did not say a word in response, and she said, "Aw, he hasn't gotten any booty in a while, so now he's gonna act like a little bitch. What's wrong with it, bitch boy? Are you horny? I'm so sorry." And in that moment, I wanted to punch her in the face, y'all. I just left instead. She doesn't react as you'd expect when I agree and amplify. She never laughs. She just stares at me like she's trying to process and enjoys that more than anything else, even when I hold frame. So please, break down my marriage and tell me what's happening before I go see a lawyer and leave my 2 young girls without daddy at home. I'm afraid I married a complete psychopath and I can't live like this forever. Agree and amplify. I think we're going to start off with this term because he needs a good dose of that in his relationship. His girl is more than happy to go off her rocker and amplify things. Calling him a bitch boy, making fun of him because he didn't get laid a couple days ago, all this kind of stuff. So she's very good at doing it. But she knows it gets to him because every time she does it, it's written on his face. Learning not to take this stuff seriously is a huge part of this. And you can tell his need for validation in this one is way too strong. So in this case, a very simple example. She makes fun of him for this. "Oh, it's been 6 days? Boo-hoo. What's such a bitch boy?" Where he could reply with something completely agreeing with that absolute bitch boy. "Do you realize I just had sex with a homeless man outside?" You're not taking it too seriously. You're not letting her get to you. Will that increase his sex life? Who knows? But at least he'll stop being a bitch boy. Texting is for logistics. This one's important because he talks too damn much and he texts too damn much. Most of these conversations were from text, by the way, not phone conversations. And by him emoting on text like this, he's losing any shred of dignity he had. Again, there's lots of guys who swear by using text game, using it to flirt. Me and most of the red-pilled guys, they see it as a way of offering free validation while getting nothing in return. And it's so easy to take a lot of this stuff out of context. So even if he has masterful text game, there's a good chance that the person on the other side of this thing is going to misinterpret all this stuff as validation-seeking behavior, which is only reinforced by the fact that he does it in person. Alpha females don't exist. Essentially, an alpha female is just a hot and young girl. That's it. They're not ornery, they're not ball busty, they're not assertive, they're not aggressive, they sure as hell aren't testosterone factories. To be honest, this one just seems like a frustrated girl. I guarantee if he wasn't so validation seeking here, the typical gym cell type guy, that she'd probably melt in his arms. But that's the thing. You have to stop thinking of girls as if they're your equals. You have to stop thinking about if their opinion matters as much as you think it does. You need to stop looking for validation, and you need to stop thinking of girls as like an alpha thing, because they just don't exist that way. A girl will fill the container you put her in. It's like water. And in this case, he's acted very validation seeking, very whiny, and very emotional. And she kind of knows that. And without a man in the house, she kind of has to fill the role. And you can tell she's not happy about it. That's why she's calling him a bitch boy. Dread. Now this is an expansive definition, so I'm only going to get to a small segment of it here, but this is a great example of why dread game exists. He's clearly not happy, he's clearly sexually unfulfilled in a marriage, and he clearly has too many problems. The point here isn't to get the wife acting right, but dread in his case is fixing the problems he has that make him more unattractive and less attractive. Physically, it sounds like he's got everything on lock, so it's really about the not being unattractive stuff. And when he talks about, I don't want to see a lawyer yet, that's the first thing he should be doing. Get that worst case scenario down pat. Know what the absolute worst thing that can happen if you get your life in order and the other person does not respond positively to it by adding value to your life. Then once that's done, you're confident in knowing that whatever transpires, it's going to be better for you, and the problems that you have are going to be something you can live with because you've already done your prep work beforehand. Now, I'd argue for any guy who wants to turn around his failing marriage or survive after leaving his failing marriage, or however you want to describe it, the first step is knowing what the worst case scenario is, because I find for a lot of guys, it's not the actual worst case scenario that gets them, it's the fear of what could be. And the first step to removing all of that is to have a good understanding about what the terms are in this little battle he's going to be doing for himself. My advice for this guy is simple. He needs to learn to be more assertive, he needs to learn to start enforcing boundaries, and he needs to learn to stop seeking validation from her. Honestly, the fact that she's willing to be like this and kind of cold just means stop looking to her for validation. If anything, she's telling him flat out, I don't care. I do not care. If you need somebody to validate to, buy a shrink, get a pastor, have a best friend, pick one of them. But don't use her. Call your mom if you have to. And then by not making the girl more than she needs to be in the relationship, which in this case is, hot sex, decent companionship, parenting strategies, they got young kids at home, that's good enough. Making her more than that is just really setting yourself up for failure. Now, most guys don't end up like this. Most guys don't end up with a girl picking up the testosterone slack calling you a bitch boy. Most of them end up just getting distant and finding their validation through other men elsewhere, or just general life dissatisfaction. But even though it plays out 100 different ways, the solution is exactly the same. Get your shit together and don't worry so much about making her happy. She can make herself happy. You just make sure she does what you need her to do in the house. Don't let the kids starve. Be available when I need you, and don't spend us out of house and home. Everything else in that is bonus. And if that's not good enough, well, you know what next steps are. This matters for you because a lot of guys end up doing what I like to call being raised as defective women. In this case, and I say it often enough, girls are like water. They fill the container you put them in, or to steal a quote from Archwinger, girls act as shitty as you let them. And in this case, pretty shitty. Here's the point. This matters for you because a lot of the time, a girl will react to the way you're acting, and then you change your behavior to double down on that behavior. It's like don't reward good behavior, or don't reward bad behavior, but reward good behavior. In this case, she's not very emotionally available because he acts a little bit whiny and validation seeking, and she doesn't like the idea of having to take on the emotional burden of this other guy. His response then is to double down on that, which most unattractive behaviors we do have that double down quality to them. If you find out your beta behaviors aren't attracting women, you double down on those because those are your strength. You're making your virtue or your vice into a virtue. And in this case, it matters for you because you got to pay attention. This is where frame matters. If you notice you're changing behavior because of the reactions of a girl, well then she's just basically going to set you up for failure because they don't know how to lead you. It's not their job to lead you, that's your job to lead yourself. And by letting her call the shots in this way, she's only conditioning you to act worse and worse and worse until eventually it comes to a head. There's tons of alternatives. Maybe it's separation, who knows? Maybe it's the case when he stops treating her as a source of validation or like a mommy wife, that she'll probably snap to and be nice and melt in his arms. Maybe she's just one of those dysfunctional girls that needs to be spanked all the time, who knows? But it's hard to say an alternative for this because you really don't know what kind of person she is because he doesn't even describe a person. He describes a fantasy in his mind. The mommy waifu, Madonna, virginal girl that takes care of the kids and is available for him, hot girl, all the works. All he sees is somebody he keeps asking to just love him and stroke his head and telling him everything's all right and her calling him a bitch. So it's impossible to say what the alternatives could be, especially, actually, you know what? The best thing we could say is the alternatives for him. He gets his act together, he starts enforcing boundaries, he stops seeking validation from her, and then one of two things will happen. One, she'll start acting in a valuable way towards his life with his new, renewed sense of expectations, or she won't, and he'll end up leaving. Yeah, that sucks. They got 2 kids, and now it'll be a separated home, but they've often said 2 happy parents are the best way to raise a kid. 1 happy parent separated from the other happy parent is the second best way of doing it. Third best way of doing it is 2 unhappy parents together, and the fourth best way is to have 2 unhappy parents separated. So, as much as it'd be nice to say the alternatives would be a nice happy life, sometimes it's just not the worst happy life. On that note though, this one's kind of fun. We don't do these type very often, but I hope you enjoyed it. Again, click the like button, hit subscribe if you like these. Fuck Files, Amazon, bookstore, you'll see the ad after this one. Don't forget, come into Patreon, check it out. We got a thriving community going on right there where we deal with this stuff in situ with people. Years of field reports. I think you'll enjoy it. Come on in, check it out. The link's in the description. And on that note, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers. Charles Bukowski. Jordan Peterson. Neil Strauss. I like these guys. Add some salt to cover up the bitterness of middle-aged soccer moms and put in the oven for 45 minutes.